Good day, everyone. 大家好, salam sejahtera semua. Hope everyone is doing well. The GMT plus 8 football fan is back now again today. And this is part one of two of the football science, the impact of the climate and physical forces in shaping the ventilation and thermal environment in and around the stadiums, which impacts both the players and the fans. The FIFA World Cup has reached the quarterfinals. I hope you all have been enjoying the tournament so far. There are less surprises. The first clash was done today. No surprise here as well, with this complete French squad winning. Morocco superstar Ismail Saibari's absence is a bitter pill to swallow. Morocco lost the fight in front because of his absence. He has scored 3 goals, including a decisive penalty versus the Netherlands, and got transferred to Bayern Munich for 50 million euros uh, from PSV, I guess. So let's start. Most people think of a football stadium as simply a venue for matches. I mean, for us fans, this is natural. But from an engineering perspective, it's actually a giant wind tunnel. Every gust of wind entering the stadium changes airflow, temperature, humidity, and ventilation across the pitch and spectator stands. Even in competitive sports or races, the wind will affect your performance. For example, if you're going to break the world record in your sprinting, of course, you want the wind to blow from behind, supporting your direction and not against you. This will make a huge friction to the drag on your body. These invisible air movements can influence players' performance for football as well. The thermal comfort because you're playing for over 90 minutes, and even air quality. In this series, we'll explore how decades of scientific research have transformed our understanding of stadium ventilation, especially I think pioneered by Professor Bert Blocken, and why it matters more than ever for the future of football. Football doesn't exist in isolation. It sits within the Earth's entire climate system. It all begins with the Earth's rotation, which drives global atmospheric circulation and shapes weather patterns around the world. Regional geography and urban environments then modify those winds before they finally interact with a stadium's design and create its unique microclimate. By the time players step on the pitch, every level from planetary physics to local stadium airflow has already influenced the conditions of the match. Understanding football means understanding this complete chain of environmental processes. Unless the stadium is fully enclosed, the impact of the climate will be definitely significant. To truly understand football, we have to think across multiple scales. At the larger scale, the Earth's rotation and atmospheric circulation determine regional weather, local geography, and urban landscapes then reshape those winds before they interact with stadium architecture to create unique microclimate. Definitely, if a stadium is surrounded by tall mountains or buildings, versus surrounded by flat land, definitely how it shapes the wind exposure is very different, as well as the solar exposure. Finally, at the smaller scales, aerodynamic forces like drag and the Magnus effect influence the ball, especially when the ball is on flight in the air, while physiology determines how players respond to heat and fatigue. Every goal, pass, and sprint is ultimately influenced by a chain of physics from the planet all the way to the player. We always call this the butterfly effect. One fascinating question is whether the Earth's rotation can actually affect a football in flight. The answer is yes, but the effect and impact is incredibly small. The Coriolis force is real and plays a major role in shaping global weather systems like hurricanes and ocean currents. However, a football is only in the air for about 1 second or more. Even Roberto Carlos' famous 35-meter free kick in 1997 would experience a Coriolis deflection of only about 1.7 millimeters. That's tiny compared with the much larger effects of ball spin known as the Magnus effect, wind turbulence, and the player's technique. So while the Coriolis effect is scientifically fascinating, it has virtually no influence on the outcome of a football match. Once the ball leaves a player's foot, several forces immediately begin acting on it. Gravity is always a dominant force, pulling the ball back to the ground. Aerodynamic drag slows it down, while the Magnus effect created by ball spin produces the spectacular bends and dips we see in free kicks normally. Wind and turbulence can further alter the trajectory, especially in open stadiums. In contrast, the Coriolis effect from the Earth's rotation is real, but the contribution again is about mere millimeters of deflection over a typical football flight. So in practice, gravity, spin, and local airflow are the forces that truly shape the beautiful game. Well, people can argue that millimeter deflection to the goalpost may make a difference between goal and no goal. Perhaps in that kind of snapshot, it could have a small impact. Yeah. This timeline shows how stadium climate research has evolved over the past decade and why we are now ready for the next generation of intelligent stadiums. The journey began between 2010 and 2013 with pioneering work by Van Hoof and Blocken, who used computational fluid dynamics or CFD to understand how wind direction, stadium geometry, and surrounding buildings affect natural ventilation. These studies established the scientific foundation of modern stadium airflow design. Research then shifted towards thermal comfort in hot climates. Studies by Sofota Xiao and colleagues, together with Blocken's work on pedestrian wind comfort, show that successful cooling depends on balancing solar radiation, humidity, airflow, and human comfort, not simply lowering air temperature. By 2019 and 2021, researchers introduced more advanced cooling techniques. Losey and colleagues analyzed thermal comfort in a football stadium using CFD, while John and Carlautit developed innovative cooling jets, air curtains, and roof cooling strategies specifically for hot climate stadiums. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Blocken and colleagues expanded the focus to indoor air quality, demonstrating how ventilation and air cleaning can significantly reduce aerosol exposure and improve safety in sports facilities. Together, these verified studies provide the scientific building blocks for the next step, a real stadium climate digital twin that integrates airflow, thermal comfort, cooling technologies, air quality, and operational data to support safer, smarter, and more sustainable football stadiums for the future. To design a cooler stadium, we first need to understand how wind actually moves through it. Although a stadium may look like a simple open structure, it behaves as a complex three-dimensional airflow system. As the prevailing wind approaches the stadium, it interacts with the roof, stands, and surrounding buildings. This creates pressure differences across the structure. High pressure forms on the windward side, while lower pressure develops over and behind the roof. These pressure differences are what naturally drive airflow through the stadium. Fresh air enters through roof openings, concourses, and gaps around the seating bowl. As it moves across the spectators and playing field, it removes accumulated heat, humidity, and airborne contaminants before exiting through openings on the opposite side. This process is known as natural cross ventilation. The effectiveness of this airflow depends on several design factors, including wind speed and direction, roof geometry, the layout of the seating bowl, and the surrounding urban environment. Even nearby buildings can significantly alter airflow patterns, which is why engineers use CFD to optimize stadium designs before construction. The studies by Van Hoof and Blocken between 2010 and 2013 established much of this scientific understanding foundation. Their research demonstrated that good stadium ventilation is not accidental. It is the result of careful engineering based on airflow physics. This knowledge forms the foundation of the advanced cooling techniques and digital twin systems that we will explore in the following slides. To understand how modern stadium climate engineering began, we can look at one of the most influential case studies, the Amsterdam Arena, also known as the Johan Cruyff Arena in the Netherlands. This stadium became a landmark in research because it was one of the first where scientists combined computational fluid dynamics, wind tunnel experience, and full-scale field measurements to understand how air naturally moves through the large football stadium. The research showed that wind direction is the single most important factor controlling natural ventilation. As wind approaches the stadium, pressure differences form around the roof and seating bowl. These pressure differences draw air into the stadium while allowing warm air to escape, creating natural cross ventilation. The studies also demonstrated that roof geometry, side openings, and even the surrounding urban environment significantly influence airflow. As a result, different seating sections can experience very different ventilation conditions and level of thermal comfort. Importantly, the CFD simulations were validated against real-world measurements, giving engineers confidence to use these models for stadium design. These pioneering studies by both of them laid the scientific foundation for today's stadium ventilation engineering. They prove that airflow can be accurately predicted before construction, enabling architects and engineers to design stadiums that are cooler, safer, and more energy efficient, and better prepared for future innovations, such as real-time stadium climate digital twins. One of the most important discoveries in stadium ventilation research is that the same stadium can behave completely differently depending on the direction of the wind. In this slide, we compare four typical wind directions. When the wind approaches along the stadium's long axis, natural cross ventilation is generally strongest, allowing fresh air to move efficiently through the seating bowl while carrying away heat and humidity. As the wind shifts to a 45-degree angle, the airflow becomes less uniform. Some sections receive good ventilation while others begin to develop recirculation zones where warm air can accumulate. When the wind approaches the short axis, the airflow pattern changes again. Air exchange may become more vertical and stagnant zones can appear behind seating sections, reducing thermal comfort for spectators. An oblique wind direction creates the most complex airflow. Pressure differences around the roof and stadium openings become uneven, leading to turbulence, recirculation, and large variation in ventilation from one seating section to another. These findings demonstrated through CFD simulations and validated by field measurements in Amsterdam Arena studies by both of them show that wind direction is the single most important factor to influence ventilation. That's why modern stadium must be evaluated under multiple wind scenarios rather than a single design condition. And this understanding for future digital twin, which can continuously adapt predictions using real-time weather data to support safer and more comfortable match day operations. As we conclude part one message stands out clearly. Stadium climate is not determined by luck, it is determined by science. Over the past decades, researchers have shown that wind is the primary driver of natural ventilation. The shape of the roof, the size and location of openings, and even surrounding urban environment all influence how effectively air moves through a stadium. The research also tells us that there is no universal design solution. A stadium that performs well under one wind direction but performs poorly under another. That is why engineers must evaluate multiple wind scenarios during the design process and pick a design that best represents ventilation from all the predominant wind directions. These findings are supported by peer-reviewed studies from Van Hoof and Blocken on natural ventilation, Sofotasio and Rossi on thermal comfort in hot climates, Zhong and Carlotti on active cooling technologies, and Blocken and colleagues on ventilation and air quality. Together, they provide a strong scientific foundation for safer and more comfortable stadiums. Looking ahead, the future lies in smart stadiums. By combining sensors, CFD simulations, weather forecasts, and operational data, stadiums can adapt in real time to changing conditions. In part two, we'll build on this foundation by exploring how these proven research findings can be integrated into the digital twin, bringing environmental science, player safety, and operational decision making together in one intelligent platform. That's all for now for part one. Take care, everyone. Bye.